And thank you very much for watching. So, how do I put this? The day before yesterday, I was training and all of a sudden I got really, really tired in the middle of training and I basically fell asleep on stream, so sorry about that. But yesterday I took some time not being in the training and just looking at the code, which I will bring up here because we are in here during the day because, you know, spending an hour a day training is probably not going to be the cause of me getting fired. And we're in the middle of transition right now, so I don't really have that much work. They told me to do something with Cypress, which I absolutely love to do. So we'll do this for about an hour and then we'll go back to work. How about that? So I had some variable issues like the S underscore that stuff going on, and I don't call the funders the same thing. I had like an extra curly brace. It was just a bunch of little things that I just got really tired in the middle of training. I think it's a like an intellectual coping mechanism, which I don't appreciate my body doing. But I have a standing desk, and I'm going to attempt to stand for this because my posture's been poor lately, and I'm suffering because I'm getting old. So, for those that don't know why we're even here, I am 12 hours and 2 minutes into a 32-hour course, which means, you know, we're basically 1/3 of the way through this. And we're like 30 minutes of more video until we're done with this section. And I feel like we just got stuck in this section. I really just want to get to the next part, which is the full stack part. It's going to be in React. I'm not going to do, I might follow along, but we're doing it in Vue as well because I prefer Vue and I think y'all are wrong. So there's that.
Entire massive test. Let's come down here, paste it, and we'll change the name saying,
I think I was just like, wow, I was super asleep. I should probably roll that back. So what are we? Do I have this? Cheap. No, I do not have the cheaper stuff. So what are we, in fact, copying and pasting? Allow us to withdraw with multiple funders. So we copy and paste this whole thing. Something about cheaper gas. I think if we just run hard hat test now, it'll tell us if I copied and pasted wrong. Okay, so we had 8, now we have 9. Let's figure out what he's trying to get us to do.
cheaper function. So I know this could be a little bit tricky to copy paste, but let's copy this entire massive text.
Yeah, so you can just, you see like these things, they collapse it. So you could just collapse it. And then you see there's it highlights the closing, so you know that you have the whole thing.
Let's come down here, paste it, and we'll change the name saying cheaper withdraw test.
Okay, I just want to make sure. It doesn't matter if you have it. Okay, cheaper.
And in here, and in this giant it here, all we're going to change is we're going to change withdraw to cheaper withdraw. And the rest.
Okay. So every time there's a withdraw in here, I think I also spelled withdraw weird. Do we have cheaper withdraw? We do have cheaper withdraw. Transaction ran out of gas. That's pretty hilarious. I bet you his works. Do I need to, let's see. Am I logged in? I am. Okay. What do you mean transaction ran out of gas? Well, let's see if his works or if he also ran out of gas.
So the test is going to be exactly the same. So with that, let's see if we were successful in making our withdraw function cheaper with cheaper withdraw. We're going to pull up our terminal now, and we're going to do yarn hard hat test, which is going to run our gas estimator because it's enabled right now. And of course, all of our functions have been broken because we renamed everything. So we'll do a quick find and replace of funders. We're going to change funders to S funders. And then we're going to change price feed to S price feed. And then do we have owner anywhere? We don't have owner anywhere. We need to change this one. Address to amount funded. Let's come in here. Address to amount funded. S, address to amount funded. What else do we need to change? Price feed, funders. Okay, I think we changed everything. All right, so let's try our test now. Yarn hard hat test. All right, great. Everything's passing. And we ran our cheaper.
All right, so if we go to the hard hat config, let's try this with test gas equals true. And that's because I have it here so we can do if it has test gas, we're testing the gas, and if not, we're not. Transaction ran out of gas. You little poopers. So I think we're doing don't really want to go back into fundme.sol. Figure out what I did wrong. But it's a part of learning, so we will do that. Set the contracts. We have the fundme sol. Cheaper withdraw. Public only owner. We have address memory funders, s_funders. So for funder index equals 0, funder index dot is less than funders dot length. Funder, oh. Well. Infinite loops will do that to you. We don't need that. See? Not so bad. And then we can go to this. Okay, so it does only have 2 calls, and the maximum is less than the maximum, but it's not that much cheaper.
Withdraw testing. So now, if we go to our gas output here, our gas report, zoom out just a hair, we can see the difference between cheaper withdraw and withdraw. We see something really interesting here. We see our cheaper withdraw on average was actually more expensive than our regular withdraw. And the reason for this is because actually if we go to our tests, our cheaper withdraw, we only tested on the multi-withdraw, so it had to reset many more accounts. But this was also technically its maximum as well. And if we compare the maximum of the cheaper withdraw to the maximum of the withdraw, it looks like the cheaper withdraw was indeed cheaper. And if we go to our hardhat.config and we add our API key back in, what we could even do is in our test, we could copy withdraw ETH from a single funder, copy that, paste it in, and just change withdraw to cheaper withdraw, rerun it with the key, and now do yarn hardhat test. We can see exactly how many dollars we would.
Okay, so uncomment this out, go to our test. It's not founders, Amy, it's funders. Oh, it's founders? So withdraw from and instead of withdraw, we do cheaper and withdraw. Save that. And then we've got 10 passing tests. We go here and Weird, but okay. On average, it is cheaper. I guess the maximum isn't as high. The minimum is more.
Save if we ran this on the Matic blockchain. Now let's go back. We'll reopen up our
USD average. Oh.
our gas report, and we can see in the minimum, cheaper withdrawal was actually a little bit more expensive. This actually does make sense. Because if we look at Fundame, if we only have to withdraw when there was one funder, well, this loop only runs one time, and our cheaper withdraw will do the exact same, but it will have this extra thing here of loading them all in. We see that the savings, the more people are funders in our contracts. So on Matic, we can see we pretty much didn't save anything. But if I change this one more time to ETH, run the test again, now we can see cheaper withdrawal saved a few cents. This is how we can start optimizing our contracts to be cheaper and cheaper. And
okay, we're gonna change this to ETH. Let's do that. Matic to ETH. And by doing that, I mean, we're just going to do it like this, and that way when I hit up, and we just do and this should save it, and then we test it, and then we look and see if it worked. Should have. So yeah, fund me, yeah, saving like $2, just great. Huh, everything should be on Polygon.
And this 2 cents was just in the average. It's not even comparing the max to the max, which was a lot more gas than their averages. We have just learned an absolute ton here. Now, this next part is going to make some of you mad because we're going to refactor our code one more time. If you don't want to refactor it and you want to leave all your tests as S underscores, you absolutely can. But to other users using our application, dealing with this S underscore is a little bit gross and actually can make our code a little bit more confusing for those who use it. And additionally, right now, all of our state variables are public. And actually, internal variables and private variables are also cheaper gas-wise, and we don't need to make every single one of our variables public because anybody can read them off the chain anyways. So one more refactoring that we're going to do is we're actually going to set the visibility of these to private or internal based off of whether or not they need to be private or internal, and then we'll create getters at the bottom of our function here. So minimum USD, we can keep as public because we want other people to know what the minimum USD of our contract is without having to go right through storage. The owner of our contract isn't important for others to know or other contracts to know, so we can go ahead and make this private. And then at the bottom.
Okay, so owner. Okay, first of all, this should be closed. So we're looking at the public immutable, private,
add a function.
okay. Do like want to make sure you don't already have it. Owner, we'll call this like public view returns address. That's what it is, right? Return internal owner.
Get owner. That's a public view.
We've got
that returns I owner, returns address. As funders can be private.
okay, so funders with a semicolon. Okay. Alright, first of all, that's not the button you press. It is command and the backslash, and then this should also be like an iFunders, right? Or is it storage funders? What's going on with funders? It is, yeah, so it's s_funders. Okay. This can be private. Maybe that should just not be aggravator or whatever. It should be
as well. So at the bottom, we're going to say function get funder. And we're going to pass a uint256.
excuse me. Oh, piggy. Function funder public view returns return s funders. Oh, and so this is the uint. See, with arrays, I'm used to it being like this. Is that the right way to do it? Whoops.
Index, public, view, turns, address, return S funders of index. The address to amount funded can also be private. So at the bottom,
okay. Function get address to amount. Semicolons will be the death of me.
we're going to create function get address to amount funded. And this is going to take an address funder, public view returns UN256. We're going to return amount funded of the funder. Did this one, we did this one, we did this one, and then price. Feed function get price feed.
Was that also turned private?
Did this one, we did this one, we did this one, and then price feed function get.
Okay. So this is a public view.
Price feed. It's going to be a public view as well. That returns aggregator v3 interface, and that's going to return s underscore price feed. Oh, okay. The reason why we did that is because we want to have this.
Whoops. Okay, well, is there a difference between these two? If not, then pretty much when, didn't I? I don't think there's any difference. Whoopsies. We're so close to being done with this lesson. 12:30, 12:08. We're doing good.
S underscore so that we as developers can know, okay, this is a storage variable. I want to be very careful about how I interact with this. But we don't want people who interact with our code to have to deal with this S stuff. And we want to give them an API that makes sense and that is easy and readable. So we add these getter functions at the bottom to do that. And also, changing the visibility can save us some gas in the long run as well, because we're going to be calling from private variables or internal variables, which are cheaper gas-wise. Of course.
Okay.
Of course, we do need to upgrade our tests one more time. And like I said, if you want to just leave them with the S underscores, that's absolutely fine. So S underscore price feed is now going to be placed with get price feed, S underscore amount to fund it. It's going to be now.
Oh. Gotcha. We're in... Oh. Sweet. Funny how this works out so much better if you're actually awake.
Place with get address to amount funded. We're now going to change S underscore funders to get funder. We're going to change I owner. There's nowhere, so never mind. We don't need to change that. And I think that was everything. Let's just look for S underscore. We don't see that. I underscore. We don't see that either. Let's just run our test one more time to make sure we refactored it correctly. And it looks like we did. Awesome. Okay, we have just learned a ton. We've refactored our code a ton, and everything is starting to look really, really good here. One more gas optimization we could make, and an optimization for our errors as well, is we could update all of our requires to instead be reverts. Because with our requires, we're actually storing this massive string, this massive array of text on chain. These error codes are much cheaper, but that's optional if you want to do that. The whole reason we were doing this is we were going through the style guide and updating things here. So we have public, internal, private, and the bottom is going to be our view/peer functions, which they are. They're just all these getters that we just added. So now our style in here looks good. We've learned a lot about gas. We've learned a lot about storage. This is fantastic. Let's do a quick refresher on everything we just learned, because we went through a lot right there. And like I said, this is one of the harder parts of this course. Any variable that is changeable that we want to persist across contract executions and transactions, we save to a giant array called storage. This array is sequentially indexed starting at 0. So the first variable, the first value that we have in our contract gets stored to the 0th index. The next one gets stored to 1, and so on and so forth. Dynamic arrays and mappings and other dynamically sized objects use a specific hashing function that you can find in the documentation to determine where the elements of those dynamic data structures go. Memory variables, constant variables, and immutable variables don't go in storage. And one of the main reasons talking about storage is so important is because the opcodes for loading from storage and for reading from storage and writing to storage are incredibly gas expensive. So in everywhere we can, we want to reduce the amount that we read and load from storage. And it's one of the easiest ways to save gas and try to optimize our code to be gas efficient. Like I said, some of this gas stuff can be a little tricky and a little bit confusing. So if you don't get this right away, it's okay. It is totally fine. If you're a little bit confused and you're like, what is he talking about? Like I said, this is some of the more advanced stuff. It'll come the more you work with Solidity and the more you work with everything here. So don't let it stress you out. Don't let it stop you from continuing. You're doing fantastic being here so far.
Staging tests.
We've written some really good unit tests. Let's now write some staging tests. And these are the tests that we can use on an actual testnet. This is a test that we're basically going to run after we've deployed some code just to see if everything is working approximately the way we want it to. So let's go ahead. We'll create a new file here. We'll call it fundme.staging.test.js.
Let's see, where would this start? I don't think you have to define sol. You might need to define pretty sure we need to do these things. Also, describe
and it's going to look really similar to what we were just doing with our unit test. And we're going to assume this is on a testnet. So these are tests that we're going to run right before we deploy this to a mainnet. This is the last step in your development journey. We want to just make sure that everything is working approximately correctly on an actual testnet. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing, describe fundme. And I'm going to go a little quick through these tests here because we've basically written this type of test before. So we're going to say before each, it's going to be an async function.
okay. For each
we're going to do the same thing as our unit tests. So we're going to have a fundme.
So let fundme contract, let deployer, let these get defined outside of the before each, and then deployer equals await accounts dot deployer. Await. I don't think we need to do that part, but fund me contract equals await ethers dot get contract. And then we use deployer as the deployer. I don't know if we need to do the mock aggregator, because the reason why we use the staging and testnet is to use their aggregators. So
variable, we're gonna have our let deployer, we're gonna have our const send value equals ethers.utils.parse ether.
okay, well that's new.
Of 1. And in here, we're going to do const get named accounts equals require hard hat. We're going to say deployer equals await get named accounts. We're going to wrap this up. Do dot deployer. We're going to say fund me equals await ethers dot get contract. Fund me, comma, we're going to connect it to our deployer. We're not going to deploy this. We're not going to do any fixtures like we did in our unit test, because in our staging tests, we're assuming that it's already deployed here. And we also don't need a mock, because on a staging, we're assuming that we're on a testnet. Now, we can actually wrap this whole thing to make sure that we're on a testnet by using our helper config and looking for our development chains. We can say we only want to run our describe bit if we're on a development chain. So first, we'll say const development chains.
Okay.
Equals require. We'll pull that helper config in.
We have the helper config. I think it's just in the, yeah. So equals require
And we'll say development chains.includes network.name. And we'll basically say, we'll say if developer chains.includes network.
Did we define network anywhere?
Name, we're going to skip. And we can actually skip using this. We're going to use something called a ternary operator. It's basically like a one-liner if statement. And you can think of this as a special type of if. I've got a link to this in the GitHub repo.
Oh my god, this is the stupidest purpose of a ternary statement. Because this is multiple lines. So then you're looking over an entire 400-line file for a question mark. Just wrap this in an if and make it an else, even though it's just two. Because, wow, that's the dumbest thing I've seen in a while. Unless they're going to do a ternary statement and quit the whole thing at the very top.
Associated with this course. And here's some JavaScript documentation showing it in action. We say, okay, return is member, and if it's true, have it be $2. Otherwise, have it be $10. And that's pretty much it. So another way of thinking about it is like, you could say let variable equals true. Then we could say let sum var equals variable question yes or no. Sum var will end up being yes, because variable is true. If variable was false, then sum var would be no. So it's literally saying if variable, then sum var equals yes, else sum var equals no. These lines are literally the exact same thing. This one is just a little bit more succinct. That's really it. So that's what this operator does. We're going to say development chains.includes network.name. So if our network is a development chain, which we're going to import network as well from Hardhead and Ethers as well, then we're going to do describe.skip. And this tells our test to just skip this whole describe. And then we're going to put this little colon here thing and save, and boom. So now we're only going to run this if we're not on a development chain. And we want to take this exact same syntax. We'll go to our unit testing here. And we'll do the exact same thing. We'll paste it. We'll have this be the opposite by putting a little not here, sticking that colon in. So now our unit tests only run on development chains, and our staging tests only run on test nets. Perfect. That's what we want. Allows people to fund and own and withdraw. And this will be an async function, of course.
So basically I did the opposite of what he did, but to be fair, I still think that having multiple line ternary statements is a terrible idea. Just saying. Being overly dramatic about this. It should be tests, like multiple tests are happening. Also over here. No big deal. We will get back to this, and we are 15 minutes away, 14, from finishing this stupid lesson, and I will get back to my life, and then we will do the next 2 hours here. It's actually more like 1 hour of the full stack front end stuff, and then we have a bunch of other stuff we can do, but this is literally just going back to Solidity and making a contract lottery ticket, and the rest of everything else is not things that we need to go through in order for me to get a job. It's just a nice to have and a nice to know.
And we probably could make this pretty robust, but we'll just say await fund me dot fund. Value is going to be the send value. And then we'll say await fund me dot
Okay, so it await contract fund value send value await fund me contract dot withdraw.
withdraw assert equals require. Try. And then we'll do kind of a lame final one. We'll say const ending balance equals await fund me dot provider dot
Const ending balance equals
get balance fund me. Dot address. Then we'll say assert dot equal ending balance dot toString
because they're not the same object.
comma 0 as a string. Whoa. We're only going to run this on a test net. I'm just going to give it this one more run to show you it in action. Feel free to skip this part again because we are going to be working with a test net. I'm going to run yarn hard hat deploy dash dash network Rinkeby.
You know what?
and it's going to run through our deploy. And after it's all deployed, we're going to run our staging tests to make sure that everything works even with a price feed on a real test net. And I need to do const development chains equals require.
You do need to do that. Look at us doing things without defining it.
Dot dot slash help our hardhat config. So now if I run yarn hardhat test, we'll see just our unit.
Not in staging, not in div.
Tests get run, but if I run yarn hardhat test dash network ringabee, we're not going to run 9 tests. We're only going to run our singular staging test.
Do you fail?
And of course, this is going to be a lot slower because we're on a testnet.
No. Close enough.
Now that we've written all these tests, we can write a couple of scripts, and then we're going to finish this out by pushing this up to GitHub, making this our first smart contract GitHub repository. When it comes to the blockchain, when it comes to smart contracts, interacting with community, interacting with open source, being a part of GitHub or GitLabs or whatever Git hosting service you're using is essential to being successful here. So let's write our scripts, and then we'll upload this to GitHub to start building our portfolio. So first, we're going to create a script to interact with our code called fund.js, and this is going to be really similar to our tests. And this way, in the future, if we want to just fund one of our contracts very quickly, we can just run this and we can do it. We're going to do the same thing that we've been doing. We're going to do an async function main, and down below, I'm just going to copy paste this because we're going to be copy pasting it a lot. We're going to paste the this little syntax here. So let's write a script that allows us to fund our contracts. So first, we're going to need const get named accounts, just like in our tests, equals require arthat. And we're going to say const deployer equals await get named accounts, just like that. And then we're going to say const fund me equals await ethers.get contract.
I think I'm done standing.
Correct. From fund me. Comma deployer. Literally almost exactly the same as our tests. Then we'll do a little console.log, funding contract, ...
Forgiven of me, but it is time to not be standing anymore. Ugh.
and we'll do const transaction response equals await fundme.fund, and for the value, we'll do something like ethers.util. Parse ether of 0.1 or something, whatever you want to do here. We, of course, need to import ethers, which it looks like we already have.
Starting to get tired, but literally, Amy, do 12 more minutes. At some point, we're going to be doing a lesson review here, right? 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 Okay.
We'll do await transaction response. Response.wait for one transaction.
Oh, I had the right of it. There was a wait involved.
And then we'll do console.log funded. We can run this little script by running yarn hardhead node. We'll run a local node with all of our contracts deployed. We'll see if our script looks okay by running yarn hardhead run scripts fund.js -- network localhost.
why am I adding things when I'm like, this doesn't work? Because if I delete is this a dumb thing where it's like we need to do like hard hat node? We do